This woman asked the question in the Am I the A-hole subreddit saying, am I the a-hole for telling my husband his parents have to move out or I'll divorce him? I highly doubt she's the a-hole. I'm sure that she has some very valid reasons. First, let's look at this. She's 38 and he's 52. She's 38, he's 52, so there is a huge age gap. So just putting that out there. Mother-in-law is 78, daddy-in-law is 80. Let's look at the story. She says, my husband's parents have been living in our home for the past 4 years. I was completely on board with this arrangement since they really do love the opportunity to be close to my daughter. The problem is my mother-in-law. She constantly makes disrespectful comments about my shopping habits, my clothes, like wearing shorts around my house or a swimming suit in our swimming pool. I tried to ignore it, but it's become unbearable. She once questioned why my name is on the house deed since my husband earns more. We've been married 20 years. My husband overhears this conversation and told her she was being inappropriate. She was also visibly angry when we bought a Mercedes to replace my old car. I don't discuss our finances with her because it's none of her business. We don't charge them rent. We pay all the bills and their cell phones. They only help with some groceries. The final straw happened the other day. She asked if I had fed our dog and cat, which I hadn't because they are on a strict diet and feeding schedule. Our cat is 17 and our dog is 7. She then started talking to her husband right in front of me, putting words in my mouth and making it sound like I put her and her husband on schedule to feed our dog and cat, which isn't true. I finally snapped and told her that if they continue living with us, I would separate from my husband because living with her is driving me insane. When my husband came home, I told him his parents need to find another place to live or we would divorce and sell the house. He agreed with me that they need to go. Here's why I might be the a-hole. They can't afford to rent anywhere near us since the cheapest rent in our town is around $3,000. If they moved to a cheaper area, they'd be over an hour and a half away. They both have hearing and eyesight issues, making that drive difficult, and moving would limit their proximity to their only grandchild. I feel terrible about that, but I can't live like this anymore. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. In-laws do not pay for anything. They're included in my cell phone plan too. They buy groceries and pay for their car. My husband and I have been married for 20 years. My husband and his parents are Americans, German and English, and we live in the USA. Mother-in-law and father-in-law retired in their 50s and sold their house 10 years ago to move closer to their only grandchild. I do not know where they spent their money on. I do know they went to cruises a lot after they sold their house, and then 4 years ago, they moved in with us. They do not contribute to anything in our household. My husband and I use our savings as well as the proceeds of the sale of our condo to purchase our home. Update, and she makes this in bold. She says, I spoke with my husband last night as this has taken a toll on him. He said he doesn't want to be kicking his parents out toward the end of their lives. However, I told them that I have put up with this for 4 years and that there are many instances where she says things and does things that have alienated me in my own house, and that words were exchanged a few times already. 4 years of having to put up with his mother's behavior, and I have reached the end of my limit. I told him they have 6 months. I also told him I love him, but that love doesn't mean I have to stay married if he wants to continue living with his parents. A life living in the same house with his parents is a life living without me. She put a hard ultimatum on her husband. I really do wonder what the mother-in-law and father-in-law are saying, like back in the room with the closed doors. They know that mama-in-law is out of pocket with some of the things that she says, but she thinks that she can get away with things because she thinks that their son is going to check wife. The thing is, once wife moves out, she's taking that child with her. In the comment section, this woman says that her husband is an MD, meaning he's a doctor. There is no way that a doctor is going to take full custody of his own child, even if he has his parents that'll be there helping to babysit or something like that. If he doesn't figure out a way to get his parents situated somewhere else, he's going to lose his wife and the proximity to his child on a consistent basis. Obviously, he can have custody. It does not sound like there's any anger between this wife and husband. It's just that mama in law has no boundaries, mama in law has no filter. Mother in law doesn't know how to stay in her place and keep her unsolicited comments and conversations to herself. Sometimes you got to keep some things within your brain and not let it come out of your mouth. Mama in law didn't learn that. Sometimes these older folks think that they could say anything to you, even when they're not in their own home. And this mother in law had the wrong one today, because it sounds like this woman is going to stand on business, and I love that for her. More of us need to be assertive, because sometimes people think that old age means that people are supposed to kowtow to your whims. And sometimes you got to say absolutely the F not, because this is my house that I pay bills in. And obviously, I'm speaking as if I'm the aggrieved one, which I am not. I just feel like sometimes people have way too much audacity, and you have no leverage here, ma'am. I will pick myself up and take myself out of the equation. All right, y'all. Let's look at some of these comments. So obviously, Flipper Lou said this before the edit. Flipper Lou says the pearl in the situation is that you and your husband are on the same page. That is excellent. Your husband can take your child and go see the grandparents an hour and a half away. They'll be able to afford it, and you'll have peace. Sparrow Saber says, yeah, that's very rare in these cases. That's definitely a big plus. Dustquake says this: OP can take your child for a day or overnight visit. You can go too if the separation makes them more tolerable. For birthdays and the like, he can get them a hotel room for a night so he doesn't have to round trip on the same day. Weekly or even bi-weekly visits with grandparents is plenty. It sounds like they have no life right now except as it mingles with yours. Them moving out makes them have a life of their own, and they'll have other things to focus on, which is actually healthier for them. Relevant Mirror says, not the a-hole. There can't be two queens in a hive. Perhaps they can get into some low-income senior housing close to your house if you have, I don't know what this means, if you have them a little time. If you give them a little time. If you give them a little time to find some housing. Okay, I get it. So here's the OP saying, there was an issue before too, which I suggested they move out. And then they said they will once their car is paid off. They drive an economy car, which is 3 years old now. I'm not sure how I put up with it, but I'm not waiting another 6 months. I'm hoping they find a place to live in 3 months. Upper Assignment says, do not hope. Put the burden on them and your husband, other relatives, short-term rental, or senior care facility if they can't care for themselves. Pun Lover says, not the a-hole, but I can't get over you being 18 and getting married to a 32-year-old, which isn't on you at all. If you got married at 18, were you guys dating when you were younger? And if so, will this be something he's going to want for your daughter? To marry a man who's been an adult for so long when she's still a teenager and really just a kid herself? Because 18 may be considered an adult, but is very similar to 17 or even 16. And here's the OP saying, I wouldn't recommend that to an 18-year-old like I was. Enter into a relationship with a 32-year-old. It worked out for me, but the relationship was definitely challenging. I felt awkward everywhere because I looked very young compared to him. The first 7 years of our marriage was largely about my immature self and him offering me advice on college life, dangers of drinking at a party, my first job, and getting my first driver's license. I was a freshman in college when we first met, and he was in his final year of college. I grew up in a religious household that taught the outdated belief of marrying the first person you become intimate with. However, by the time I turned 26, my belief system completely changed. I no longer adhere to the old-fashioned idea of marrying the first person you sleep with. I changed as a person, but my relationship with my husband has grown into a loving, equal partnership. A love that I didn't know was possible if I hadn't met him. Even though the age gap did raise my eyebrows a bit, this doesn't seem like a power dynamic situation. This is just a boundary situation with his mama that he did not nip in the bud. So we shall see what happens. I don't know how this will end for them, but at least she's looking for a senior home for her mother-in-law. But y'all go ahead and chime in with your thoughts.